Bless our friends, bless our food. Come, O Lord, and sit with us. May we talk, flow with peace. May our Savior surround us. Friendship and love, may it bloom and grow forever. Bless our friends, bless our food. Come, O Lord, and sit with us. Many are sick and feeble, others will not eat tonight. But, O Lord, to us who food, plenty of food and appetite. You alone have made us grateful. Freed us each from sin and shame. All our thanks and all our praises, Lord, we raise in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
You may be seated. Today we are not singing. We're having a not sing day. There's been some concern with Smith germs, and so the CDC and the State Health Department are suggesting that groups and churches do not sing, and if they're going to sing, everybody must wear masks. So we are opting at this time not to sing. Creighton will come to your home and serenade you to keep you practice. I don't know. So, yeah.
Not much, but I'll pay you a small fee.
So just call Creighton when you'd like to have him there.
You can afford it.
Yeah, there you go. Tom, do you want to say a few words about the tractor?
That's good. I've done that to people all year long. Call on them while they're eating. Right, so the tractorcade, the center of operations is going to be at the Equestrian Center at the fairgrounds on starting Monday, August 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Kathy's passing around the sign-up sheet. It's from 6 to 10 a.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I broke those down from like 6 to 8 or 8 to 10. 2 people could be there to help in those 3 days or more. That'd be great. If you can do the 4 hours, sign up for the 6 to 8 and 8 to 10. Let's see what else. We're going
masks, gloves. Oh, sorry.
Our guesstimate is that we'll serve about 300 people a day, and that's going to be poured coffee and then some sort of individually wrapped. We'll probably have fruit, Nutrin bars, cookies, muffins. We're still working with that. I have 1 large coffee pot already. I need 2 more.
You want to come look at mine?
Is it like, which is 100? Yeah. 100 cups?
I have 4 different sizes, from here to here.
Oh.
You want to pop down and look at mine?
I will.
Okay.
Cool,
Or
let's take
not
care
mine,
of that.
but the chambers.
The coffee is going to be donated by Mission Coffee. And they're normally not open on Monday. I think they're going to open that Monday just in case people want to go down there and buy beans or that sort of thing. Fairway is talking with, I talked to Bruce about what we needed, and beyond the stuff that comes out of those little dead boxes, he was going to check with other vendors and see what suggestions they might have. So I'll follow up with him in the next day or 2. We've already got the cups and napkins, and let's just set up some. If there's anybody that would maybe can't help Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but would be available sometime between now and then to help you coordinate this stuff, that'd be great too. Just let me know. And no idea what kind of money we're going to make or spend or.
Masks and gloves, like.
Yes.
Will they be
and the coffee will have to be served.
Will they be provided, or you should bring your own?
I think the club should provide it. I'll get some. I mean, you may have to bring your own mask. I don't know if there's even available.
I still have some at the store.
Okay.
Did I sign up for?
Okay. Yes, you did.
Thank you, John. Any questions?
August.
No visitors today. Happy dollars. Do we have any happy people here today?
I'll start off. I got 3 separate happy dollars. One, it was thankful for the city to keep the pool open, and also on the weekends to have that adult swim time from 3 to 4 with a 3-year-old. It's the perfect time to leave the pool and have them go take a nap. And say we have to leave the pool because it'd be tough to get him out of there without them having that time to do that. He loves the pool, so. And then Friday, the High School Association announced that right now the plan is to still have all the fall sports, so they're gonna be giving us guidance on the 27th of July for football and cross country and volleyball. And then the last thing, Jerry gave this to me, but just the reason why we do the blood drive, there's a thing that came from the Red Cross, that this Allison girl suffered from both placenta previa and placenta preta during the birth of her daughter, Gwendolyn, and she lost 1.5 times her total blood volume. She received 14 units of whole blood, 8 units of AV Elite, and 4 units of platelets. So through the generosity of like the blood drives and the blood donors that we have, we were able to save people's lives. So just one of the reasons why we do the blood drive. It's kind of nice to hear those stories. Yeah.
Jan?
Oh, I'm happy because the governor announced that the students have to go to school.
Yay! And it's about time, isn't it?
No, well, it's so important that they're in school.
That's right. I agree. Yes. Anybody else?
I don't agree that the other, is that $1 if I don't agree?
Sure. Why not? But it should
Like
be.
the boys baseball beating Dyersville Beckman,
Very
first
nice.
time in 17 years in the regional
Very
district
nice.
finals.
Very nice. Anybody else? Doug?
$1 because primarily because I don't have enough money to hire a crane to just come stay at my house. I'm happy.
Was there a compliment in
I
there?
think so.
You think so?
Think about that.
Anybody else have happy dollars? After that, that's enough. Birthdays and anniversaries?
2 anniversaries this week. Brian Barnhart has an anniversary today, and Steve Williams on Friday.
Yay.
Woo-hoo. And the question of the day.
What United States state has lived under 6 flags? It's been under 6 flags, like six.
Oh, not the amusement park.
The amusement park, or you mean?
You decide.
Yeah, it's not the amusement. Let's start over. Okay, well, we'll start over. What state in the United States has lived under 6 flags? Not an amusement park. A, Florida, B, Alaska, C, Hawaii, D, Texas, or E, Louisiana. A, Florida, B, Alaska, C, Hawaii, D, Texas, or E, Louisiana. It's D, Texas.
Well, that makes the most sense, too.
Pay forward.
Yeah.
Pay ahead, I'll never get them right anyhow.
Mr. Jared, Main Street
Many of you may get your magazine today if you haven't checked the mail. Anyhow,
people,
I'm gonna also pass out 10 years ago. Kathy hasn't done this yet, but one of these days she's gonna start finding us without wearing a rotary pin. And I put mine on. This is the one that I handed out when I was district governor. And at that time, the theme of Rotary was the future of Rotary is in your hands. And I'm going to pass these out, and you can have one. Wear it. I've got a bunch of these left, so I might as well get rid of them. It's 10 years ago. Probably not going to use them. But you might want to just wear one to Rotary so that you've got one. You autograph one?
Thank you.
I'll autograph it, yes. It's great. The other thing is that we have, we don't, I got some more. Here. I do have a couple more. On there, you'll see a Rotary emblem. How many cogs are in the Rotary emblem? 6 cogs. 24. There's 6 spokes. And this, that emblem was approved, they decided in 1922, I believe, that Rotary needed a symbol. So in 1923, they came up with the symbol, but it wasn't complete. It didn't have the keyway in it. And a bunch of engineers said, you know what? You put that cog on there without a keyway, it's worthless. It won't work. So they put the keyway in there, and ever since 1923, that has been the Rotary emblem. I'm going to pass around a picture for you to look at. This is April 6, 1964. It's a picture of John Wilker bringing in 4 new members. Jim Cooper. Anybody know who Jim Cooper was? Must have not lasted long. Mike Lotzinger?
Yeah.
What did he do?
Well,
Worked down at Cutler's.
Yeah. Cutlers, okay.
His wife was.
Ken Hargrove?
Yeah.
Hargrave.
Hargrave.
Hargrave Furniture.
Hargrave Furniture?
Yeah.
The 4th one, Ray Kleino. Ray Kleino is, I think, 90 now. I have coffee with him every morning. He was doing fine this morning. And he was a new member at that time. Also, I just want to share with you that on June 15th of 1964, the program was a gentleman by the name of Ed Morris. Ed Morris was the field consultant and director of Easter Seals. He gave a talk about the Iowa Society for Crippled Children. The Iowa Society for Crippled Children is now 97 or 98 years old. They have Camp Sunnyside in Des Moines. And they've been there, I don't know when that camp started, but obviously Camp Courageous does much, or some of the very same things that Camp Sunnyside does. And of course, Camp Courageous started in 1972 when their first buildings were put up. So just a little bit, and that was the program in June 22nd, 1964. So that was it.
Thank you, Jerry. The next program, July 27th, will be by our historian, Jerry. Jerry, do you have your program?
Yes, next week, Jim Hogan is going to tell us about his trip to Panama and one other country in South America when he was on the National Pork Board. India? Colombia. Were you on that trip?
All right. That takes us to our speaker, Creighton, if you would like to introduce.
Thank you, Ken. I'd like to introduce my daughter, Lindsey. She is going to be starting her 11th year teaching here in Monticello. She's a 4th grade teacher at the elementary level, and she took over for Janice Lastly at that time. Lindsey is the mother, or married to Colin Ryan, who's from Dublin, Ireland. They have 2 beautiful kids, Ashley and Nikki, and they're just the absolute best kids you can imagine. is, she's gotten very active with a group that she actually started here in Monticello. It's an extension of more of a national type of thing, but basically on a local level, they can design these programs however they want to. So Lindsey will explain what she's done with this, and I think you'll find it very interesting. So even though I don't get a warm welcome, please give a warm welcome to my daughter.
Thank you. This is the first time I've gotten in front of a group this size since before spring break. So I got dressed up. This is like my usual. I'm feeling good. In the summer, I'm usually wearing yoga pants, tennis shoes, and a t-shirt. So this is a step up from that. But thank you for having me here today. It's great to see friendly faces, and thank you for the warm welcome. As Dad said, I did start this group in Monticello. As far as I know, it's the first group of its kind that we're in our community. And I'll get into sort of my reasons why in a minute. But I'm going to also be asking for a little bit of interaction from the group, if that's okay. So every once in a while I'll have some questions that you can either kind of share with the whole group or turn and talk to the people beside you. So first of all, the group is called Tilt Together Parent Group. Thank you. And there's, a broad range of diagnoses that we could cover here. I didn't want it to be specifically just an autism group, even though that would be my daughter's main diagnosis. You could probably do something like that in a bigger city, like Iowa City, for example, but because we're a smaller community, I wanted it to encompass a lot of learning differences and intellectual differences. So it kind of covers autism, ADHD, anxiety, learning differences, sensory issues, and anything that would kind of fall under that differently wired category. So my first question is, and I did hear you kind of talk at the beginning about the four corners of your beliefs, but I'm wondering if you could summarize Rotary in 10 words or less, what would you say would be the purpose of Rotary or the reason for this group?
Service.
Service above self.
Well, I wasn't sure.
Right. Fellowship.
Helping our communities. Great. And I think we might have some things in common, even though, we're very different groups. But I could say the same thing about those things with my group too. Why do you think Rotary is an asset to your community?
Great networking.
Networking.
Do a lot of local projects.
We're inclusive rather than exclusive, so we're welcoming to all.
Welcoming to all, I love that. That's great. So, as you're thinking about, those were probably a lot of the reasons why Rotary was started. I don't know when it was started, before the 1920s?
1921.
1921, okay.
1905. Our club started in Monticello in 1921.
Monticello.
Okay, but the original Rotary.
Rotary International.
Okay. Yeah, so, every group starts for a reason. And these are kind of my reasons for starting my group. Parenting is a challenge. Show your hand if you are a parent. Not everybody in the room is, but many of us are. So if you're not, I apologize if I'm talking a lot about parenting today, but a lot of people in the room could probably relate. At a lot of points in the parenting journey, it is a challenge, even if your children are very neurotypical children. But if you're parenting a child with special needs, it kind of brings it to a whole nother level. And this can include things like more meltdowns than the typical child has, needing to schedule several therapy sessions within a week. And when you live in a small town, you're including the driving back and forth because those therapies are usually in Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, or Dubuque. lots of appointments, an increase in spending financially, whether it's for those therapies, doctor's appointments, special equipment needed. And then the co-parenting journey, whether you're married or not, all of the conversations you have to have around helping your child with special needs, and lots of difficult decisions have to be made at certain points in the marriage or the relationship too. So whether we recognize it outwardly or not, these parents are going through a lot, and it really helps to talk about it with somebody else who understands. Even if the parents in the room don't have the exact same diagnoses as your child, sometimes the struggles or just the feelings that the parents feel are the same, and they can really relate and say, yeah, I've been there, you know. So it's really helpful to know that we're not alone. So I'd like you to think about a parent you know whose child struggles with either behavior, social skills, or academics, and I don't want you to name any names, but just think for a minute if you can picture someone in your mind right now that you know personally, or maybe it's even yourself, that has struggled with a child that has behavior, social skills, or academic needs. So this is my daughter Ashling, and she was my inspiration for starting this group. Currently she is 8 years old, going into 3rd grade. It was around her 1st grade year that we got the diagnoses that we now know she has, but even prior to that, when she entered 3-year-old preschool, we started to learn that there were just some different things going on with her, and she just didn't behave the same way as the other kids in the classroom. Lots of meltdowns and crying and not able to sit and listen as well as the other kids, and that over time kind of evolved into some different strategies that the teachers were trying, and a lot of the typical strategies just weren't working. So we decided to get her tested, and the first round of results didn't really say much, probably because she was too young at the time, but by 1st grade we found out that she has autism, ADHD, she has sensory processing disorder, she has a food intake disorder that is beyond picky eating. It's avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, so there's a very small amount of foods that she'll actually eat. And just different things can irritate her more than other kids. So along with her diagnoses, you know, school has always been a challenge. It's hard for her to sit and follow the group plan. It's hard for her to sometimes feel comfortable in the clothes that she's wearing. And when she's not quite regulated very well, she does have a lot of meltdowns. So for us, that journey was difficult, and I'll kind of get into soon how I dug deeper into that as a parent to try to find how to kind of survive that myself. So this was kind of my process of digging deeper. I found out about this person, Debbie Reber, and I first discovered her through a podcast. So thumbs up if you've ever listened to a podcast before. I don't know if any podcast listeners in the room. So if you find one that you really like, sometimes you kind of dig deeply into it and you listen to every single episode that podcast has ever created. That's basically what I did. I started from day one and listened to all of them. And you know, she recommends several books, and one was a book she wrote called Differently Wired, Raising an Exceptional Child in a Conventional World. Found out about her website, and basically she has inspired different moms like me around the United States to start their own in-person parent groups based on that whole concept of being there for each other and sharing resources with each other, sharing tips I was really just absorbing a lot of information and kind of trying to become an expert on my daughter. I didn't really plan on starting my own group, but then eventually I just felt like, I remember at one point I asked the autism consultant at the school, like, where's the parent group for children of special needs? I really would like to join it. She said, there isn't one. And I was pretty shocked about that. And, you know, the more we talked, I said, you know, well, where could I find one? And she said, well, there might be one in Iowa City. And I said, well, maybe I would consider starting one myself. And I thought that was a really great idea. She said, there isn't one, but there should be. I'll never forget her saying it just like that. No, there isn't one, but there should be. So that kind of stuck in my head, and I really just couldn't get it out of my head and had to go with it. So the next one I have for you is kind of our purpose. The main things I would like the group to provide for people is resources, support, mentorships, and friendships. So I want you to just kind of, if you can read that, just kind of look through it, but I'm not going to read every word of it to you. But basically, our meetings are about providing resources to families so that they can know what's available in the area. We have guest speakers come to our group, and we also share our questions and feelings with each other during those groups. And out of that, of course, comes more relationships or friendships that never existed in the first place. Just as some of you in this group have probably experienced, you've probably met new friends as becoming part of Rotary. So I just want to get you thinking again, kind of back to that idea of when Rotary first started in 1905. So if you had to start a brand new group in a community and it never existed before, and you just had to start from scratch and figure out what would work best, and not only about meeting the needs of the people who come there, but how do you get them to keep coming? Can you kind of turn and talk to the people at your table about how you would do that?
Have coffee, right? But you don't want to have coffee with the same people that in your business. You don't have just insurance guys. So you have guys from all sorts of locations. There you go.
Okay, I'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Would anyone like to share with the whole group one of the main things that came out of your conversation? Tom?
Food and booze.
Yeah. Food as one of the most instant things that came to people. So, anything else other than food?
Fellowship.
Fellowship. Having a purpose that is kind of a central purpose that everyone can agree on. Great. Okay, so I thought a lot about how I would structure the meetings before actually starting the group because I wanted it to start off really well. I didn't want to just kind of play around with things and see how it goes and keep changing it. I wanted to start with a bang and kind of go forward from there. And we started in September last year, so we have almost had a full year with this group, but I really feel like the structure I chose was a good one, and we've continued to stick with it. We always start at 6 o'clock with a guest speaker, and that guest speaker goes for about 45 minutes. Set up a lot like we are right now. We have the projector and the screen and the audience listening, and handouts are handed out. And if you see a sheet that's on your table that looks like this, it'll give you an idea of all the guest speakers we've already had are in teal at the top, and the guest speakers that we are planning on having are in orange. We always have food, and from the beginning, day one, that was a biggie. So we are set up in First Presbyterian Church Fellowship Hall, and it's really a nice setup because there's a kitchen. We have volunteers who prepare the food and lay it out. When the guest speakers finish, we open the window and people can come through. Another big part of our group is that it's free to everyone because I didn't want finances to limit who was able to come to the group. So the food is free. We also were able to offer free childcare. So that was a huge one that, it was a dream of mine, but I didn't know if we'd ever be able to make it a possibility. But it is happening, and we started off with volunteers, but we raised enough money that I can now pay a person to manage the child care portion of it, because I wanted to have consistency there so the parents could rely on someone being there for their kids every time. And the person we pay to do the child care is also a trained associate for the school district. So she's had all the trainings that someone who works with a special needs child would have, which was, again, what I was looking for was a high quality person to be able to do that. So while the parents are there, they don't have to worry about finding a babysitter for their kids. They don't have to worry about how their kids are doing, and they're in the next room if they ever want to check on them. But after the break, we go into the 7 o'clock community circle. And it's neat that these two different portions of the meetings kind of draw different people in. So some people come purely for the guest speaker, and they can actually leave at that point if they want to. They can come, get their information, eat some food, and leave for the night. Some people actually may or may not be interested in the speaker, but they're really in it for the second portion, which is the community building portion of the meeting. And we do sit in a circle, and we do usually a round of a lighthearted question at first. Then we kind of go a little deeper into either reflecting on the topic of the evening, or a lot of times a parent will share a struggle they're going through, and they just don't know what to do. And they really just want to hear advice from other parents, like, what would you do? What have you already tried that could help us with this? And it's just, like, so many tears have been shed. We had to start keeping a Kleenex box in the middle of the circle. But it's a really good, like, a lot of friendships have come from it, and there's definitely a core group of people who comes every single week, no matter what. And that I want to share with you was another thing I think made the group really successful, is most groups like this that do exist only meet once a month, if that, or maybe even less often than that. And what they found with groups like that is people stop coming, and then it dwindles to nothing. And again, you meet every week, right? You guys are here every single Monday.
You come to hear Creighton?
Yeah, to hear him sing.
Finally got a compliment. Look at that one.
And it's on video.
That's the one thing that's missing from my group meetings. I have not had Dad sing at them. That could just bring it to a whole other level.
We don't recommend it.
We did do childcare though. You don't pass over that.
Yeah, you have helped in that way. Yes, definitely. He's one of the first volunteers who helped with the childcare room. So yeah, every single week, which people thought I was crazy. That's a huge commitment from me, but I just knew that I didn't know, but I had a feeling that that's what would keep the group going. Because some people can't come every time, but this at least gets them there a couple times a month, you know.
How many do you have regularly?
It varies week to week, and I think part of that is if they're interested in the guest speaker or not. But I think the biggest meeting was 24 people, and average would be about 8.
So you've had about 24 or 5 families that have been touched by this, or is it greater than that?
Oh, it's probably greater than that. I'd say closer to 50, because it changes week to week. Some people kind of come and go, and so we even had some people from Cedar Rapids there are flyers up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Dubuque, Anamosa, Cascade. So it's not just for people in our town, but sometimes we do get other people coming. And you know, I don't mind it either way. The bigger groups, it's neat to have so many different people there, but the smaller groups are great too because you get more of an intimate conversation and you can go deeper with less people. So if you've heard of restorative practices, that's the model I went off of for the community circle. So that model says that you always sit in a circle. There can't be anything in the middle of that circle, so you wouldn't even have a table in the middle. It's an open circle. There's a talking piece. We usually have like a special stone we pass around. So when you hold the stone, you have the privilege to speak, but you also have the right to pass. If you don't want to speak, you don't have to say anything. So there's a lot of safety and trust involved, but it helps prevent that one person who always wants to talk, and then the other people don't get a chance. It fixes that problem. It also helps with the really quiet, shy people who you might need to wait till the stone goes around the circle 2 or 3 times, but eventually they will say something. So it's also, you know, confidential. We trust each other that it won't go outside of that room. But these are just some quotes I put up there that I think describe what we're kind of going for here. Dad, could you read the first one, please?
We're all starving for community. It's a wonderful place to go and say something and know you'll be heard.
Doug, could you read the second one, please?
Relationships are like threads in the fabric of a community.
Brad, the third one?
Telling our stories is a process of self-reflection.
President, I forget your name. Kathy, can you please read?
It is a universal human wish to be connected to others in a positive way.
And I think with that one, we're really seeing that with the COVID quarantine that a lot of people have been through when we were all kind of staying in our homes. We missed that connection with other people. The next one says, we work to cultivate a culture of belonging, inclusivity, and diverse perspectives, because only when diverse perspectives are included, respected, and valued can we start to get a full picture of the world, who we serve, what they need, and how to successfully meet people where they are. So we also work on, you know, if somebody says something controversial in the group, it's not like everybody's going to attack them for it. People have different opinions and they can be accepted for what they believe and feel safe to do so. Do I have a volunteer to read the last one, Daring Leaders? Can you do it, please? Sorry.
I can't see that far.
I'm gonna.
Daring leaders fight for the inclusion of all people, opinions, and perspectives, because that makes us all better and stronger.
Thank you.
Now you know I can't see far.
I didn't mean to take on you.
Perfect.
Thanks. And that is part of why maybe a group like this didn't exist before. It's a smaller group within our community. It's almost like an invisible group that people don't even know exists. That, you know, there are people that are struggling with their kids' diagnoses and you may not even know it. Especially with neurodiverse kids, because they can look totally normal on the outside, but you have no idea what's going on with their brains. Yes?
Lindsay, can you give us some insight on how many people have learning disabilities of various kinds? And
yes.
Do they outgrow them, or some of them outgrow them, or I don't really know.
20% of today's kids are neurodiverse. 20%.
That's the label for what you just talked about.
Neurodiverse is diversity of how the brain is wired. So if their brain is wired differently than the norm, and that's anything from, like I explained, autism would be considered neurodiverse. Kids with ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That stems from how their brain is structured. Kids who struggle with sensory needs because maybe their senses are overstimulated really easily. And, you know, touch, smell, taste, those things can really bother some kids. I even consider like Down syndrome to be in this group, but I don't know if that 20% does. But if I hope that kind of gives you an idea. These kids don't necessarily look any differently on the outside. It has to do with the way their brain is wired. And it's
Do they have it to varying degrees? Like
yes.
I'm ADHD.
Oh, yes.
I might just kind of be sometimes.
There is a
but
quote.
I could be tearing this room apart.
Did you outgrow it then?
No, I never had. I was always a good boy. I never went to the principal. No one's around there.
There's one quote that says, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Every single kid with autism is different. It's called a spectrum for that reason. So, yeah, all those different areas that I talked about, like the sensory needs, they could be higher in one kid and lower in another, and it just could be anywhere in between. I think that happens a lot with ADHD as well, which is why there are so many different medications that doctors have to try before they can find the right one, and so many different strategies that teachers try to use in classrooms too. So yes, very, very different. Did that help answer your question?
Yeah, do they outgrow it? Some of them?
Lindsay, I'm going to cut you off here.
Oops.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask you to come back again and talk about this.
I should have kept better track
No,
of
that's
time.
fine.
I'm
You've
sorry.
held everybody's attention, so we'd like to invite you back.
Oh, that's very nice of you. Thank you.
And we have a gift for you.
Look this way.
Sorry.
But we only give out one gift, right?
Yeah, there you go, dessert, yeah, sometimes you don't want to have it, but some of the kids, they need it.
Real quick before you go, if you happen to go anywhere in the community where you'd like to hang one of these up on a bulletin board, can you please help me with that? If you want to take any extras, they're up here, but I'd really appreciate you helping me spread the word about the group. Thank you.
Thanks to Tom for our podium, and we are adjourned.